The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Les, you live. Les?
Yeah.
You're live.
Yeah. Am I live?
You're live.
All right, boy, I missed that one. Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to Armed Radio. This is Unscheduled with Les Skymo and my special guest, Dave. And sorry about that lousy introduction. And but I want to say thank you to our military folks. Pray for our military stationed around the world. Pray for their families. And if you'd like to call in tonight, the phone number is 1-800-508-5431. And we've got a very, very special guest back to continue. This is a part 2 of Jane Doe. And last week I abruptly interrupted her. I'd run out of time and wasn't watching my timer. And so this time I made a lousy introduction. And so I went to get a drink of water. And so anyway, we've got some questions. And if, like I say, if you'd like to call, she would be more than glad to answer your questions. And we never went live on Facebook, video or audio by her request. And the last question, as we closed out the show last week, that I was asking her was, just let me recap just for a second. Her husband was murdered and she was raped by her son-in-law in the same event. This happened, just one right after another. And he was abusing her daughter, and she went through the whole story last week. And go back and listen to the taped version of my show, and you'll get the whole account of that entire story of the entire event, the tragic event that she went through. And so when we closed out last week, the question I'd ask her was, what do you have to do now, okay, to keep him in prison? You know, you hear people going to the parole board, and you hear people doing certain things. I mean, that just, to me, the guy should have got the death penalty, Dave, Mm-hmm. And that's how I see that. He should have just been executed and it'd been over with. And now, but she's got to do these things to keep him in prison. And so tell us what you're going through now, just to see that he don't see daylight.
Well, whenever he tries to get released early or try to get a parole hearing early, the county calls me and asks me if I will appear in court and testify again as to what he did. And it's he's VI TV. I see him the whole time I'm testifying, but he's not in the building. He doesn't leave prison. He's via the TV. And I testify, and I'm questioned just like I was at the trial. and then the judge makes the decision. Sometimes he makes it right away, and sometimes he'll take a while, and we get his answer in written form a week or so later.
So then you're sitting on pins and needles this whole time. Now, is this something that the judge alone decides, or is there a parole board that he collaborates with?
To the best of my knowledge, I'm not really sure about that, but to the best of my knowledge, it's the judge, because we're in court and I'm testifying, and then they ask him questions.
Right. Now, folks, this show is unscheduled, and the name of it, and it's simply because of the things that's unscheduled in our lives. And now, can you imagine coming, having to go through a situation like this, and now ever so many years you have to live this over and over. Now, how often does this happen to where you have to face this again and again and again?
I can't tell you how often it happens, because it's nothing that I can't estimate, because if he, just like the county was trying to get him grandfathered into having to register as a sex offender when he gets out, and he was fighting it. So I just testified for that. I think it was last year, and it took the judge about a week to make his decision, and the judge decided the decision was that he doesn't have to register as a sex offender. He has to register as a sexual predator.
A predator.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can't, because if something comes up and he wants to fight something, that's not anything that I can know ahead of time, where it's so many years. I don't know. It all depends on the things that he's doing and the things that the county's doing, and then they get a hold of me. They call me.
Well, and Dave, that gives me some insight to this corrupt judicial system that we have. It's not a justice system; it's a legal system. Number one, I'll guarantee you. Now, Sue, maybe you can answer this. And can you sue the guy for wrongful death or anything like that?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it, because to me it wasn't about money.
Right.
I know that he threatened me as he was leaving the courtroom, but I don't know.
Well, and I'll tell you the reason I ask is because you hear of that a lot. People suing for wrongful death. Now, granted, he don't have anything, been in prison, and but and that goes to a different court. But now, going through this, do you know if he has a court-appointed lawyer? Or is his family paying for his lawyer?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, because here's the problem I have with this, Dave. One of the problems is having to face this, the victim having to go through this over and over and over. And I know, even with a court-appointed lawyer, they will file all these appeals, all these motions, and these attorneys get paid by the state, okay, and by our tax dollars. And it's a lifetime. If he died on death row, there's going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars that's spent, okay, and her life interfered with over and over and over, having to deal with this garbage. And I see no justice in that. I see more legalism in that than I do justice, and it shouldn't be that way. Dave, absolutely, this should have been a cut and dry deal, where he absolutely got life with no chance of parole or the death penalty. She shouldn't have to deal with this.
I agree. Yeah. It's just like this deal with Hillary Clinton. She's skating free. Jim Comey.
Yeah.
He's skating free. And all these ones that have lied to Congress and lied to the United States, it seems like to me that the higher up you are, there's a two-tier justice system.
Right.
There's one for the average person, and there's one for the connected person. Right. Unless you're connected, then you're in trouble. You get in the justice system nowadays. Unless you're connected, you're in trouble.
Right.
Either you have the very finest attorney, or you get look what happened with O.J. Simpson. He was connected. He had money.
Right.
He had attorneys.
Right.
He got out of it. Plus, he had the help of a jury to help him get out of it.
Well, we got a system here. Number one, all these attorneys and all these lawyers, all these prosecutors, these judges. A judge is somebody that's just an elevated lawyer. They all know each other. It's just like a big game to them.
Sure
They will and deal with one another. They drink together. They party together. They run around and womanize together. And like I said, this is not a justice system. This is it's a two-tiered legal system. Mm-hmm. And now you got, and I always go back to this, is you got the corporation, the federal government, the local, right down to the dog catcher. It's a corporation. They cover for one another. They will and deal with one another. They steal our money to pay one another. And then somebody like her, and there's millions of her out there, at one form or another, that's trapped dealing with this their entire life. And not only them, Dave, their whole family is drugged through this, and there's no end to it until you die, because this crappy so-called judicial system that we have, it has no common law in it whatsoever. It's maritime law is what it is. It's the law of the sea. People, you can research this. Has nothing to do with or very, very little to do with common law, with the exception of some juries. But and I've been on jury duty, Dave, and when you go in there to sit on a jury, especially in a criminal trial, when you've got the prosecutor and you got the attorney for the defendant, it just goes back and forth, and they will massage the jurists until they get exactly what they want.
Let me tell you what my experience with. I was seated in a grand jury in Warren County in Lebanon.
Yeah,
and we met once a week, and the prosecutor, she basically went through the case. If she wanted to indict, she more or less got her will to indict.
Yeah.
If you were on the grand jury, as I was, and you raised a question and didn't agree with her, she'd look at you like, who are you to ask that kind of question?
Yeah.
You're nobody. You just do what I say. And the old saying that you can indict a ham sandwich, well, I believe that's the truth.
Yeah.
After sitting on a grand jury, it's the case. A lot of times, this may be talking out of school, I don't know, but what she would say, well, we actually don't have enough evidence on this person to get a conviction. So, but I'm thinking to myself, well, why in the world are you even bringing him before a grand jury if you don't have enough evidence to try the case?
Right.
So I guess she's just kind of pawning it off on the grand jury to let this person go.
Right.
And they pick and choose who they want to indict and who they want to basically convict.
Exactly.
If the district attorney gets their way, which they usually always do, as I sat on the jury, they always got their way. I remember one case where there was this young guy that was, he was retarded. He was mentally, incompetent to stand trial. I think, by what I heard. Now, she didn't want to try that case because he was accused of molesting some other kids that were basically the same mental capacity as what he was.
Right.
And she didn't want to try that case, which I totally agreed with that. But my thought was, why even bring that before the grand jury? So I think what it was is so she wouldn't have to say, we didn't try to indict.
Oh yeah, she covered her own butt.
We were covering her.
Oh yeah.
And that's the way it works. And my experience with the legal system.
Oh yeah. They're. I tell you what, from what I've seen of them, Dave, they're snakes. They're liars. They're you name it, and that's what a lot of them are. It's pure corruption, and that's the type of system that it has evolved into because it's designed by crooks. It's designed, by thieves and liars and corrupt politicians. There's no two ways about it, Mm-hmm. And then to look at her to see what she goes through, and it's just not right. Now, you said that it took you how many years now to start coming to grips with this, to where you didn't see his face and things like that?
I'm not, I can't be absolutely certain, but I know it was at least 10 years before I could not run into the house when I parked the car after dark. I still can't go any place by myself that I'm not familiar with. Right. And I have talked in front of, I've done workshops with this, and I'm still nervous about talking to a group of people. Mm-hmm. I'm still really nervous, and I don't know that. I mean, that's been 33 years, and I'm still nervous. So I don't know that.
Well, now as you do these workshops and things, now you had told me that you hadn't sought any counseling or anything in the beginning, and was it offered to you in the beginning of this? Did they offer you some help, and you refused it, or?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know that they offered offered me counseling, but I'm sure. I know the victim advocate from the prosecutor's office met me at the urgent care facility that the ambulance took me to the night that this happened, and she kept in touch with me, and she was with me through the trial, and if I had any questions, I had her number. I could call her. She even gave me her cell phone number, her personal cell phone number, to where I could call her if I got fearful, or if I was really nervous, or if I just had questions, or whatever the case was. She was there for me.
Right. Now, she was there that whole length of time until you just felt like that you could start handling this, or
what?
I mean, where did the healing actually start in the beginning, taking place? Because, see, I can't fathom this, Dave, and there's so many, it's not like just one big slick thing. I mean, there's episodes to this one event. It's like chapters in this one event that you lived. And, when do you remember when you first started feeling like that there was some healing taking place in this? Can you remember that time?
No, but I know it was several years, because but I know that I I didn't turn to counseling. I prayed a lot.
Right.
I prayed a lot. I mean, I moved back to the home that this took place in. And I would pray. And I would study the Bible. And I would do whatever it took to ease my mind. And I didn't think anybody could help heal me. The victim advocate, she helped me as much as she could, and she got me through the trial. I mean, she helped me through the trial.
Yeah.
But God was the only answer that I knew.
Right. Yeah. 'Cause I know sometimes in my own life, you pray and it just seemed like it's going nowhere. There's no immediate help. It's just like a big giant dry spell, and then after a while things just start opening up and your understanding becomes increased, and you start being stable enough to where you can start processing this and doing the right things, and so people at church are help, your pastors are help. Did you turn to your church community and your pastor?
Oh yes, I certainly did. And as far as what you said a few minutes ago, there was times that I prayed and prayed and prayed. There was times like that, and I just did not turn loose of God, because I knew that He was the only thing that could help me. And as far as having spells to where things didn't seem to be working, yeah, there was lots of times like that.
Right.
And there was several years that I started working to help people. And when I did a lot of Bible study during the time that I was leaning to God, because I couldn't work. I couldn't work because of my mental state.
Right.
But when I got to where I could work, I got a job where I could help people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like that's why God let me go through this, is so that I could help others.
Right. Now, and that goes back to the question that I asked you the last time, was how in this world could you go through this, believe in a God that would allow you to go through this? I mean, you see so many people over much lesser things committing suicide. And going crazy, or I mean, I don't have no explanation for this. And like I said, I've done a lot of counseling in my 30 years as been a minister, but there's no way that I could prepare myself, Dave, to counsel somebody for this. This is a higher power thing, brother, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's true. It is, but perhaps the best thing is just time itself. As time goes on, you begin to heal. It takes a while to heal. Every wound takes its own length of time to heal. Some wounds really never fully heal. There is always a scab there that can be torn off and it reappear again,
right.
and the wound appears. But with time and with the Lord, I think that it does heal all wounds, and it just takes time. And the closer you get to God, and the further you get from the world, the more of God's love that you feel, the more healing you have. Because there's no good thing in the flesh, and the Bible teaches us that there is no good thing in the flesh, and it's the flesh that was violated.
Right. Yeah.
And somewhat the spirit, but as with time, and drawing closer to God, you withdraw from that, and you get into a newer life that it's more abundant. Like Jesus said, he came to the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I've come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. It's John 10:10, and because of that promise, we as human beings draw closer to God and further from the world and the pain that's in the world. And that pain that's in the world is nothing but despair. People that don't have the Lord, I don't see how they ever get over things that happen to them, how they ever escape, how they ever get away from it. Because if you don't have God in your life, you don't have anything.
Well, you don't have nowhere else to turn, nothing bigger than you.
That's right.
And somebody may say, well, why do you turn to something that's really not there? Well, see, the thing about that is, Dave, you come to find out he is there. Mm-hmm. Because, like I say, there's all kinds of evidence that he is there. And you'll find those things, mm-hmm. And now... how did that, now did you, because when it comes to church, now a lot of people don't want to go to church, they buck on church, and well, I serve God, I don't have to go to church, but see, it's so much more than just a place to go to on Sundays, or just a place to go to on Wednesdays. It's a refuge. It's a place where you can go and be with your own people, your brothers and sisters in Christ. It's a healing place. It's a place you can go to for love and for support, mm-hmm. for prayer and even financial help or whatever you need.
I did.
Did you find that in your life?
Yes, I did. My church family was there to support me, whether it be telephone or whether it be at the church or wherever. And to put a little more light on the question you asked me a while ago, how I could go through this and not leave God. I studied the Bible, so in the Bible it talks about how many different people does it say they suffered for years. Look at Job, and no, I'm not comparing myself to Job, but look at how he suffered and he didn't turn loose of God. Okay, and Moses, look at how Moses suffered. Look how David suffered. All of those people suffered for years, mm-hmm. and they didn't turn loose of God.
Paul and all the disciples.
I'm not comparing myself to them, but that is what gave me encouragement. That gave me encouragement. And my church family, it didn't matter what time of the day or night I called them. I could always call them. And they were there for me. They were there for me.
Right.
So how could you turn loose of something that was there for you? Even though you couldn't see it, you couldn't, and you felt like you were alone sometimes, he was still there.
Right. The saddest thing I think I ever experienced, been a minister, Dave, was several years ago, and you probably remember this, the family and I, we had the Full Gospel Street Ministry. And we'd do benefit singings for homeless kids, and we would go into the ghettos, and we'd go to Dayton, Cincinnati, over to Ryan's Soup Kitchen. We'd done this for 10 years. And, we would provide Christmases, for, I don't know, I hate to say thousands, but it was at least hundreds and hundreds of kids, and women's shelters that we helped. And it was a beautiful thing. And I was ministering on the side, and one of the saddest things I ever seen was a coroner called me one day, Dave, and this is the very first funeral I ever preached. And so a Montgomery County coroner called me, and asked me my name, and I said, "Yes, sir, that's me." And he said, "Well, we found this guy dead." He described the situation, and he said, "We found your number in his pocket," and he was a young man, and like this was 30 years ago. I hadn't long been a minister, and so he asked me if the family could get in contact with me. So I told him, yeah, I'll pass it on to the family. At this time, I didn't know exactly who he was. And so the family contacted me. Come to find out, I went to school with the boy. And not only the guy dying alone under the circumstances he died under, but here was a family, Dave, that had no church, had no preacher, no pastor to turn to preach their loved one's funeral. And, you know, that broke my heart, because here you have a family that don't have that refuge, Sue, and that's why I'm always pounding on it. You know, people, you need to go to church. You need to go to church. It's not just a place to go, but that broke my heart, because here was this family that I knew and went to school with this guy, and they had to turn. I was a stranger to them, but I knew this kid, and they had to turn to a stranger to preach their loved one's funeral, and that was just so sad. And I couldn't say no, so I sat with the family for a while and talked to them for a while, counseled them for a while, and I did the funeral. But you know, I'll never forget that. And you know, your contact with the church and things it just goes way beyond a place just to hang out on a Sunday, don't it?
Yes, it does.
So
It's much more than that, and I will never forget how special they were. And when I was depressed or down, they certainly helped me in ways that it's hard to explain.
right,
But they were there for me.
right,
I mean, my pastor and his wife took me to testify in front of the grand jury. I mean, pastors don't have to do that.
right,
But that's how much support my church family was. And they're more than a church family. They're family, period. They're family.
right. Well, and you know, they're not all like that, Dave. You know, and that's sad that we allow denomination to divide us. We allow petty things to divide us. You know, and you know, when people, you know, the world needs someplace to go to, Dave. And I mean, we're not perfect. We can't walk on water. But we're striving, and that's the thing. It's to strive for that perfection. I believe it was Paul that said that. And but we need to come together, us Christian people do, to help this lost and dying world. You know, we give when we had that street ministry going, we gave a dress. Somebody had donated this. It was like a graduation. It was like a prom dress, and so I think we even had it dry cleaned. Beautiful white dress, and we're down in the ghettos, and there was this girl that we run into, this teenager, and I don't remember all the circumstances. But you know, we'd just go into the ghettos and start knocking on doors, you know, and you know, and people loved us. I mean, and they watched over us. I mean, we really had a something going on with these people. We wouldn't always go to the same place, but our reputation just spread. And I would ask these people, don't you have a church? Somebody that can help you around? Yeah, there's one over here and one over there. And as time went on, do you know what? I'd like to believe we played a part in it. These churches started reaching out to their own people, and I believe we sparked that. And when you do things for somebody, you don't know how many other people you're going to affect by doing that. But just to reach out and to be a servant.
Well, that's what Jesus did. He not only preached the word, but he also fed the people.
Right.
He fed 5,000, and that was just mostly men and their wives and children. So it could have been 10,000.
Who knows? Yeah.
15,000. Who knows? But he took the little that the young man had was the 2 fishes and the 5 loaves, and he multiplied it into where there were 12 large baskets full that were left after they fed everybody. Yeah. That's an amazing thing, but God wants us to be fed spiritually and physically.
Right.
He will provide that which we need. And if you remember this, he said the birds of the air, they neither toil nor reap. He said, or they don't store away things in barns, but your Heavenly Father takes care of them. He said, aren't you much more valuable than these?
Right.
And we can't worry about tomorrow about what we're going to eat, what we're going to drink, and what we're going to wear. Life is far more than what we wear or what we put on.
Right.
And this is what the Lord taught. And one of the saddest scriptures that I've ever read is where Jesus preached a sermon that said, "You must eat my body and drink my blood in order to partake in the kingdom." I think he's referring to communion.
Communion, yeah.
But the people didn't understand it, and it says in the Bible that many found it to be a hard saying, and they left. And after they left, Jesus looked at his disciples. He said, "Well, will you leave also?" And I think it was Peter who said, "Well, Lord, where can we go?" He says, "Where you have the words to eternal life."
Right.
Where else can you go? And that's when we get into life situations like this terrible thing happened to you. That where else can we go but to the Lord? That's what He wants. He desires us to go to Him in prayer. When it breaks His heart that we try to work things out on our own, and we don't go to Him. Mm-hmm. And we take it on ourselves, and we try to solve the problem ourselves. When it's the Lord that wants to take it away, take our pain away, and that's the only way we can really get rid of the pain.
Now, do you feel like now? I know some about your background, how you was raised. That was your foundation your entire life?
My grandmother.
You had something to go back to.
Yes.
You always knew, even in this tragic situation, you knew that you had something bigger than you to go back to. And now with that, I'm going to ask you this too. It's a 2-part question. Without that, what kind of chance do you think these kids have in the world today that don't have that foundation?
Okay, I'm not sure that I can answer both parts of that, but the kind of foundation I had, my grandmother lived close to us, my grandma and grandpa did, and I was the type of child that I loved my grandma. And you talk about a Christian, she was a strong, strong Christian. And every time I got hurt, even as a little child, if I got hurt, if I got stung by a bee, If I hurt my toe, I ran to my grandma crying, saying, "Grandma, pray for me. I hurt such and such." My grandmother would stop whatever she was doing and pray for me because I was hurt, like it was the most important thing in her life at the time. Now, I was with her, I was around her for so many years. And she would be singing songs all the time and humming and praising the Lord and thanking Him and praying. Well, my mother became a Christian in my teenage years, but I had my grandmother that was so strong. She was so strong. No matter how little the hurt was, she prayed like it was the most important thing in the world.
Right, yeah.
And how could I not? If He could heal the little things, He could heal the big things.
So it made a difference when this happened to you. You had some foundation, you had some roots. Did suicide ever cross your mind?
Heavens, no. That's a sin.
Yeah.
And once you do that, you can't change it.
You can't undo it.
No.
Yeah. And that was because, would you say, to your upbringing, the way you were raised?
Yes, I would. And besides that, I knew that my children needed me. They had already lost their dad. I knew they couldn't handle losing their mother too. But I wouldn't have anyway because I knew it was a sin and I did not want to go to hell.
Yeah. But you found some kind of rational reason for living,
Yes.
even while this was taking place.
Yes.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I believe that you was telling me as this was going on, you was praying for him.
Yes. I prayed for him for years. I still do sometimes, and if I don't forgive, how can I expect to be forgiven?
That's what the
And
Lord
that's
said.
unconditionally.
Yes.
Which you had conditions on it at one time.
Yeah, I had conditions on it for about 30 years.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting in our church, and the preacher was preaching about unconditional love and forgiveness, and it hit me. I hadn't done that, and I had to ask God to help me have that unconditional forgiveness for him because I couldn't do it on my own.
Well, what would you say to young parents today that they don't see no need for any kind of relationship with the Lord, or they, because I've always said that if you don't raise your children, the world will, and you won't like the outcome of it. I'm sure you would encourage them to.
When my children was growing up, I did not go to church. I was not a Christian. My mother babysat my children. I worked 2 and 3 jobs at a time, and she babysat for me, and she took them to church. Mm-hmm. She raised them like that. And then when my kids were like teenagers, I became a Christian, so they have the knowledge that he's there, and they've been in church a lot of their life, but they're not now.
But the seed's been planted.
Right.
There was somebody in your lineage to, even though it was your obligation, sometimes that does fall onto the grandparent or one of the other family members. Okay, but if it had never been there in your lineage,
I could never have made it through this.
And that's what I like to tell people, Dave, is and why, suicide bothers me so much. I've had friends that their family members, did I say it again? Oh, just in case. I've had friends that have come to me and asked me, question me about because they've had a brother or a sister, and that's pretty deep. And it's not that the church even or your preachers and sometimes, Dave, there's not a answer that you can reach out to, but if you will just try and you'll work on your relationship with the Lord, and regardless of how many times you stumble and fall, if you're trying, if you're working on it, you can build a trust to where whatever comes your way, whatever it is, that you don't, even if you don't have the answers, that in the worst situation that you serve a God you can trust, and that the outcome is going to be to your favor. Because like what you do now, you're sitting here now, and you've given these seminars and these workshops. You feel like that's a help to you personally, and a therapy for you doing what you do now?
Well,
a mission maybe?
I feel like that's why God let me go through this, was to help others. Because of my strong Christian background with my grandmother and my mother, and I don't feel like, I don't know whether it helps me or not, because every time I do this, I have to relive it.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. But I feel like if I don't, then that would be for nothing. Everything I've gone through would be for nothing.
For nothing, yeah.
And
that makes a lot of sense.
God doesn't want it to be for nothing.
Right. Right.
And just like he says, he lets it rain on the just and the unjust.
Well, what would your advice be to somebody that may be listening? Like, say we're in 66 different countries around the world live right now, and so many people are raped, girls for the most part, and they turn to drugs or alcohol, or they live in a shell. They never are the same. And I know this is a tough question to you, and maybe you don't have the answer, or but what would be your advice to them? Because so many times it's somebody they know, it's a family member, it's a date rape, but rape is rape, and but I mean, there's worse circumstances to particular situations. Do you have any advice that you would, do you turn to law enforcement? What do you do, Jane?
I don't have all the answers for that. And but I do feel like that if they would not go out after dark by themselves. I mean, two can walk your friend can walk with you, your family member, your sister or your brother can walk with you or go with you. Don't be in a rough neighborhood. And be by yourself. And sometimes it happens during the day. This happened to me in daylight. So I think they should have somebody to partner with them whenever they need to go out.
Be preventative about it before it happens.
Yes, and watch for the signs. I never thought about signs until after this happened, and I got the job that I did years later. But you can watch for signs and protect your children. Don't let your kids go out the young kids, and be careful who you leave them with. Make sure that you watch for the signs. I mean, because there are different signs that you can watch for. But as far as trying to prevent it, you can do certain things, but it's still going to happen sometimes.
Well, what do you do after it's happened?
After it's happened,
What would you recommend to somebody that come to you and says, look, I was raped? Family member or a stranger. I mean, they're different situations, but
okay.
do you have anything that you could recommend?
Okay, I've had the training to become a victim advocate. And what I do would be tell them what their choices are.
Mm-hmm. And that would
let them choose which one they want to do. If they want to file charges, if they don't want to file charges, if they want to leave that person, or if they want to go back to that person, or if they don't have a place to go, but let them choose. Let them choose what they want to do, and then back them 100%. Even if you disagree with their decision, it's their life. Let them have control of it. It's been taken away from them.
Right.
Give it back to them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get counseling, get counseling. If you want, you can always go to church and have people pray for you, even if you don't go to church. If you want to pray, you can pray at home. You can pray with your family. You can pray anywhere. It doesn't matter.
Right. That's true.
I don't have all the answers, but that would be my suggestions, and I don't know if I helped anybody or not, but I hope so, and I hope I helped you keep it from happening to you.
Well, my main thing here with this show and asking you to come on and everything is, there is a life after tragedy. You've lost a husband. You've been violated. You've been raped. Your daughter lived with a vicious animal that done this. But you go on. You move on. You have you subdued this through the Lord to a point to where you're reaching out and helping others. It's not that it's not painful. It's not like it's just all magically gone, but you have not only survived it, you've conquered it. Dave, and that's one thing. We've got a few minutes left here, and Dave, what would you?
One thing I can say, Les, is that there's really only been one time that I was really ever painfully hurt deeply, and it's been many years ago, but I found that once when I forgave that person and I look back on it, I can see more clearly that what happened and how it happened and all these things that went into it, and it helped me to see more clearly because of the forgiveness. And it's like I said last week, if you don't forgive people, it's commanded by the Bible. It's not only because the Lord forgave us. He loved us and He forgave us, but by His death on the cross, He took our sin. But when we forgive other people, it's to our benefit. If you don't forgive somebody, they don't know, they don't care. They go about their life like they always did. It makes no difference to them. But when you forgive, it helps you. It's for your own.
Exactly.
It's for your own good that you forgive. That it's a burden that's lifted from you. You don't have to walk in it. And unforgiveness can cause all sorts of problems. It can cause anger, hostility toward their loved ones. You can explode for no reason. When you have unforgiveness in your life, it presents itself in a multitude of problems. And I think that's why God requires us to forgive our brothers and sisters when they offend us. But, too often today, people aren't really offended. It's like the organization that is a separation of church and state.
Yeah.
What it is it's a separation to keep God out of things. That's what it's for.
What's the evil intent behind it?
They are haters of God. Now, think about this. If they really didn't think God was real, they're atheists, and they don't really think God's real. Well, what does it matter how we worship?
Right.
What does it matter if we have the Ten Commandments in front of a courthouse?
If they don't believe they exist.
If it's phony to them and fake, why are they so upset about it?
Right.
Because look who's behind it. It's the devil.
Oh, exactly.
The devil's behind it, and he seeks to destroy, to steal, kill, and destroy.
Well, why would you fight against something that's not real?
Exactly.
You know?
Why would you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I say, well, it'd be like somebody
It
lost.
wouldn't have no effect on
It's
them.
like somebody lost their mind. I mean, you would feel sorry for them.
Right.
You know, if they lost their mind.
Right.
Why do not they don't feel sorry for us Christians? They don't. That's not the point.
Right.
The point is the who's behind it. They become haters of God and all the good represents.
Right.
It's freedom. It's not freedom of religion to us. It's freedom from religion to them.
Right.
They don't want to be exposed to any type of thing that's good, that comes from God.
Well, you know, and it's like the things, I think, Dave, if they can wipe let's see, we've got like 30 seconds here, folks, and close this out, but you know, well, we've got 20 seconds, but I want to thank you for coming. I really appreciate it, Jane, and you know, this has been a wonderful 2 shows that you took the time out and spent with us. Dave, you want to close us out real quick?
Well, it's about time for me to hit the old dusty trail, Les. It's been great being with you today, and we'll see you next week.
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks so much, Jane. This has been Unscheduled, live on Armed Radio. God bless y'all, and tune in next week at 7 p.m. on Wednesday for Unscheduled with Les Skymo.